Hey guys, Nicholas here, and I've got another army showcase for you, and we get to showcase Jim Vesal's Chaos Extravaganza. Hey Jim, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, welcome here. I'm so glad you came out. I'm so glad you brought almost 30,000 points.
I think around 30,000 points, give or take a few upgrades. So yeah, it's a lot.
Oh, it looks beautiful. It's all chaos. You got some demons. You got some Death Guard.
Yeah. Death Guard. Yeah. I got 1,000 Suns, and then my Chaos Space Marines, and then 3 Chaos Knight models because they're not quite as large, but hopefully the.
It's so good. How many models do you think you have here?
Probably around 600, give or take. I haven't actually counted, and I usually rotate it in and out of my figure cases, so I never have to actually face the amount of chaos that I've collected. So seeing it all on the table like this is both amazing feeling, but also like kind of a holy crap factor. So.
And you've painted all of this, haven't you?
All of it, and all of it actually since the start of 8th edition. So this has been probably 5 years of painting. So that's a lot of models.
Yeah. Your hobby commitment astounds me. And this isn't just like battle ready, tabletop ready, 3 colors. This is like ready for showcase level.
Yeah, I think just about every model in this army has been, besides maybe the Death Guard, because that's the newest and I haven't actually got to play with it, just about every model in this army has been in an army that's won a Best Painted award.
Yeah, I believe it. The amount of detail that's gone into here, from just what color choices you made to some of the freehand work. There's some conversions here too, aren't there?
There's a lot of scratch built stuff. My Mortarian's almost totally rebuilt from the stock model. I got a lot of scratch built models. My Possessed, which I just finished, one of my newest models, Death Guard Possessed, are really amazing. I did an awesome, one of my favorites is my Huron Blackheart conversion. That's actually Abaddon, but I did a Huron Blackheart out of an Abaddon model. And yeah,
Steve needs to take some pages from there.
Even the Defilers, which are slightly silly, I've converted to de-silify them. So if that's a word,
they look more modern and more fit with the more common aesthetic now, rather than what it was at the beginning of the game. So for those of you who don't know Jim has been on our channel a couple times, twice.
3 times, actually.
3 times!
Yeah. The inaugural WetCoast.
Yeah, one of our first battle reports ever.
I played Simon at Creature Caster.
Yeah.
And then I played JT the last game of 8th edition. That was my
That's right. That was our send-off to 8th edition.
Yeah.
And so we're having you back again. There's another battle report coming up with you very soon against Gary Sacco, another great player. And so that's going to be a really cool matchup playing Dark Angels. But right now, we're here to talk about you and your army. And why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into 40K?
Yeah, so I've been a Chaos player since the very start when I used to play Warhammer Fantasy. I've always loved Chaos. I played a little bit of 40K in 3rd edition and then obviously took a bit of a hiatus. When the Magnus model came out, when they showed that, I basically was like, I have to collect an army around this model. So that was actually the first model I bought of this whole army. That was the very first model I bought. So that was like the kind of the king of the army. And so from there, I bought a little bit more 1,000 Suns, and then a little bit more 1,000 Suns, and then over the last 5 years, obviously it's grown into this. So that's kind of the origins of it, I guess, the army. So. But
what brought you into it? Like you just saw it in a random store one day, or like had you played 40K before? Friends play?
Yeah, so I played 3rd edition, and I was a big fantasy player. I quit fantasy after Age of Sigmar came out, just because it wasn't quite for me. And so I still painted. I still did a little bit of hobbying, but there wasn't really anything that could pull me back into the game. And so when Magnus came out, and there was rumors of 8th edition kind of brewing, I figured this was a great time to jump back into the hobby. So first, I picked him up right around the time he released, which is I think at the tail end of 7th edition in the I think Wrath of Magnus supplement for 7th edition. And so I started painting him. Didn't have an army, didn't know any of the rules. Waited my turn till 8th dropped, and then got right back into the game and kind of hit the ground running.
Now, someone doesn't put this much effort into an army or several armies if they don't love this game or lore or something. What is this game to you? What does it mean to you?
Well, it's a lot of things. It's been a community of friendship. Some of the people that I've been closest to, I met through 40K. For me, it's been something that's been really good for like my mental health, especially the last year. It's been something that I've used a lot to kind of help myself stay out of trouble as well. And also, it really. I've always loved the storyline. I love reading the books, the Horse Heresy, the background. So it's always been something that's really interested me. As I said, I was always mainly a fantasy player, but from a lore perspective, I always loved the lore of 40K more, and so it's just there's just so many parts of the hobby that I love, and I'm a bit of an introvert, so it's a nice excuse to kind of stay home and not do anything. I don't feel so bad when it's sunny outside as long as I'm painting models. It feels like I'm not actually wasting the day.
It feels like you accomplished something.
Yeah, it feels like it's actually worth it to stay inside if I can finish a model.
I feel sometimes the same thing. Sometimes like late at night I'll be like, okay, I want to play a video game, but you know what? If I paint a model, I'll actually get to the end of the night and actually feel like I accomplished something.
Absolutely, and from just like an art, I guess I'm not an artist. My drawing skills are pretty.
You're not an artist?
Well,
I think this would beg to disagree.
Well, I'd say my drawing and illustration skills are not great. It's something that I'm really working hard to improve, especially with some of the freehand I've done. But it is a way for me to kind of flex that area. I'm completely tone deaf, so I'd never be good at music. So this is kind of like the one kind of artistic avenue thing that I have in my life that really lets me like express myself.
It's beautiful. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
And so you express yourself through chaosy goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's just something about evil that I love. So, and you know, for the most part, the thing I love about Chaos is it provides so many opportunities for conversions, for scratch builds. There's no other army that I can basically roll a ball of green stuff into my bits box and come out of it with a model. So
have you actually done that?
No, not quite. But there's a few models in here, like I have a few Chaos Spawn kind of hidden in here that are pretty close, where I literally started with, you know, a few small things, and then next thing I know, it's got all sorts of other things attached to it. And I love being able to scratch build stuff. So this Demon Prince, for instance, is actually built out of about 12 different kits. And it's probably like, if you wanted to buy the parts for this, it's probably about a $400 model, just between all the different parts that I used. Things like my Chaos Knight, which is a bit of a centerpiece model. So I love scratch building things and making things my own. And there's no other army in the game like Chaos that provides that opportunity to really just kind of go totally buck wild with it.
It's true. I've seen a lot of great Chaos conversions all over the place, and usually this is the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so for someone who's not familiar with Chaos or hasn't played the game much, very little experience maybe, what is the lore behind Chaos? What is Chaos, and what are we seeing here?
Right. So the long and short of it is there are evil Chaos mortals, so people that are alive, led by these two big guys with the wings. So this is Mortarion. He's a Primarch of the Death Guard Legion, and then that guy over there is Magnus. He is the Primarch of the Thousand Sons. So many thousands of years ago, in the background, they betrayed the Emperor of Mankind, who is the big bad,
big bad
father of the Imperium. And basically, half of the human followers, essentially the Space Marines, betrayed the Emperor and ran off into the Eye of Terror, which is basically just a hellscape of warp and bad energy. And in that event, they met some lovely demon friends, and so they've kind of brought on board the demons and gotten corrupted over those 10,000 years and kind of re-emerged out of the Eye of Terror to terrorize the false Imperium and the carry-on lord of the Emperor.
That's why so many of these humans have spikes sticking out of them,
That's
or
right.
horns, or weird tentacle things, and they've
enhancements,
gifts.
Yeah, that's right. They're gifts. Yeah,
man, you can see the story in your army here. You can see the story here. I see a lot of custom stuff, like for instance those banners. I love the banners. Did you paint those yourself?
With Chaos, the models are quite busy. There's actually not a lot of negative space on a lot of Chaos, or there's a lot of flesh areas. So there's not a ton of opportunity for freehand. And so a way that I can kind of incorporate lots of freehand in my army is through the use of banners. And it is a little bit of a legacy carryover from when I used to play Warhammer Fantasy, because I love the idea that, units march to war, they carry the banners of their leaders or their gods. And so being able to kind of use them as little opportunities to add, just some interest to the army, just some cool visual elements. It's something that I really, really enjoy doing. And the nice thing about painting a banner is if you screw it up, you don't ruin a nice paint job on a model. So you can always start again.
So a lot of people know you yourself by ITC rankings.
Right.
The ITC, in the international tournament circuit. Basically.
International thing. I think it used to be independent, now it's international because it's worldwide.
So basically, you've done very well at a lot of tournaments.
That's right.
And so a lot of people know you as this big competitive player. Now, obviously, this speaks to more than that, but tell me a bit about that side. Like, you love going to tournaments? Do you love playing this game competitively?
I love everything about the game. It's something that I really work hard on to balance, which is really high level of hobby, really high level of sportsmanship, and then really high level of competition. And it's something that I think that sometimes, there's maybe a stereotype that either if you're a hobbyist, maybe you're not very good at the game, or if you're really good at the game, you're not very committed to like the background and the hobby. And so I try really hard to kind of present kind of that Renaissance man. You know, I want a very balanced approach to the game. And so for me, you know, I won't even play with unpainted models. It's a cardinal rule of mine. So what that means is I paint very fast because I got to get stuff on the table. But it is something that I'm very passionate about, is kind of presenting that kind of, you know, and again, I don't say that there's any side that's better than the other. I think it's important that everyone gets out of the hobby what they want, but I really want to kind of change the maybe perception that people that play at a very high level don't care about, you know, they're just going to do 3 colors minimum on their army and black bases and get it on the table. So
well, I think you've succeeded at that.
Thank you.
There's nothing better than, at least if you're getting beat really bad at a game, you're being beat by a beautiful army.
I do get that a lot. People are usually, when they lose to me, they're happy the army looks nice.
In my opinion, Warhammer 40K is a shared narrative between 2 players. No matter if it's a competitive game, it's still a shared narrative between 2 players.
Yeah.
And so if your army at least looks beautiful, if you put the effort in it, that just enhances that and brings you more immersed into the game, no matter if it's a competitive game or a narrative game.
Absolutely. You know, I get the most fun out of playing really nice looking armies. And that's not to say I don't get fun playing not nicely painted armies, but there's just something about 2 players with beautiful armies going at it on the table that it's just so awesome to see. And even just like sitting here, I'm giddy and I'm super excited because
I'm giddy.
Yeah. I've never actually put it all out on the table like this. So it's like, behold, you know,
like you can't actually see it all. Like
no.
I keep looking over and finding something new.
Yeah, I could just go through about every unit and there's like lots of little cool conversions. I've probably done conversions in just about every unit on here. Some of them are super subtle, some of them are full scratch built.
Have you ever rolled up to a game and the other person has maybe not put the effort in? How does that feel?
I mean, look, I don't ever like to shame people. Some people just don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
So at the end,
it's true. It's not for everybody.
Some people just don't enjoy it. And at the end of the day, what's more important to me is that we have a fun game. And hopefully, and this is my big wish, is that when they see an army like mine come across the table from them, it inspires them to want an army like that. I hear a lot of times people, you know, they see really nice paint jobs and they're like, well, why do I even bother? But I actually am trying to do the opposite. Is like, I want people to see really cool paint jobs and be inspired and say, that looks so cool. I'm going to try really hard to achieve that. And so whenever I can, I try to give lots of hobby tips and that kind of stuff and help out painters as much as I can.
I think you're an exemplar of the hobby. I think you do that very well. I think you're a great ambassador for the hobby. And in fact, I think you've recently started some new projects kind of touching on that a bunch.
Yeah, so I started doing some live streams on Twitch and YouTube under Duplicity Paint, which is like my pseudo commission paint studio. I don't actually really do much commission painting. It's more just like something to pay my hobby, but I'm doing various interviews, podcasts, and hobby shows on that channel. Producing new content. I'm still learning a lot of the ropes. I'm obviously not as sophisticated as you guys yet, but hopefully, you know, and I'm just a one-man show in my little apartment, but I'm going to be doing lots of hobby tips and tactics and lots of discussion, just things that I'm really passionate about because I love talking about the hobby. I love engaging with the audience, and so if you guys are interested, check it out. I'm sure these guys will hopefully throw a link in the video below.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the description below. I recently actually saw you post about one. It was you were talking about should armies that are commission painted be valid choices for best painted awards.
Yeah,
it was a fascinating subject. You had some really great back and forth conversations there. It was a really interesting subject to talk about.
Yeah, it's you know, I really want to get into those kinds of more things that maybe people don't really think about too much. I love that like really deep discussion, that kind of like the philosophy, the ethics around how we play the hobby and things and stuff like that. So I'm very excited to be able to kind of have a bit of an opportunity to talk about those things. So.
Yeah, people outside this hobby that look in don't realize how deep some of this stuff goes. And it's like, we can have lots of arguments about the minute little things, and people looking in are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, like, you know, it's all about sharing that passion for the hobby, the love of the hobby, and then just trying to get people more into the hobby and engaged. So that's hopefully I can do that a little bit.
Do you have any 40K stories you want to share, like a game story?
Game stories? Oh man. Well, I do very much distinctly remember the first episode that we filmed at WetCoast. Watching that video back, it was really interesting to see how far the channel's come, but also just trying to struggle through that game. It definitely imbibed a little bit too much the night before. So like I've really turned around the way that I approach my 40K games now and really trying to focus on, you know, good table play, communicating and stuff like that. My highlight the last few years, obviously we haven't played a lot of events, is obviously winning Adepticon in 2019. So I am still the reigning champion of Adepticon, which is nice because it's been canceled for 2 years. So, you know, just saying, not saying. And then obviously I'm very just excited. I'm on the WTC team, so the World Team Championship team for Team Canada. Canada. Obviously, that just got canceled this year, so we're hoping that it does happen next year in Austria. Yeah, so I'm just really excited to get back into the competitive scene, but also just to get out, meet my friends, see my friends and stuff like that.
I've got one 40K story that revolves you. So Tycho on our team has been a little bit nervous to meet you again.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you remember, but at that WetCoast tournament that you won, that was our first game, Tycho accidentally ran into your display board.
Oh yeah.
And knocked it all over the floor.
Yeah.
He felt terrible. He felt so terrible. And you approach it with as much calm as I think you possibly could do in that moment with your armies all over the floor. Just like, no, don't touch it. I got this. And Tycho's been a little bit terrified ever since.
Yeah, it was, it happens sometimes. I think later on, my army actually got stolen, and I don't know if I told you that story, but in retrospect, my army getting knocked was maybe a practice of calmness, because my army got stolen.
This army over here?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of everything. Yeah. So it was my mixed, I just actually coming home from Ontario, from a tournament actually, that I don't think I won, but maybe I came top 3. But yeah, it got stolen from Pearson International. I panicked for 30 minutes and then I had to get on my plane and I couldn't get it back. So that was a very 5 hours of probably the most depressing, brutal plane ride, being basically helpless, understanding that my army could be anywhere at this point. And then, I contacted the airport, started painting a new army because I wasn't gonna let it ruin my season. Yeah. And about 3 weeks later, I got a call from the airport saying that they had found a case that matched the description of my army. And at that point, I'd already given up on the army. I was like, after the first 24, 48 hours, if they're not going to find your stuff, there's a very good chance you're never going to see it again. So I waited. 3 weeks later, I'd already painted, I think, maybe like 600 points of new stuff by then. And the community itself was actually the coolest part of that story. I had so much outreach from hobby stores, other gamers, tournament players, people I'd never met across the world saying, hey, we have armies for you, we'll send you models, let us know how we can help.
Awesome.
So that whole part of it was actually a really positive part, and it was really touching to have so many people reach out to me that I'd never met and offer to give me support and try to get me, because at the time I was #1 in the ITC. I had my whole army stolen, and basically if I didn't have a new army, my season would be over. And so just to see the community really come together was just an amazing feeling, and I did end up getting the army back, thank God, untouched, and that was actually like,
that is amazing.
That was one of the happiest phone calls I've ever gotten in my life. So
I actually remember seeing posts on Reddit about that, and it was like, Jim Vesal's army is missing, and we had just filmed your game, and I was like, whoa, I just filmed that army and it's missing, oh no! Yeah,
it was probably about 3 weeks after Adepticon. It was quite short. Like, I was posting photos of my army from Adepticon on like that I would put on like the milk carton. Like, those are like the missing army photos.
Yeah, like the milk carton. Let's get into your army itself. Right. Maybe, I don't know where to start, but tell me about this army, run me through it, definitely highlight anything you've converted especially, and walk me, maybe go left to right and just tell me what you got here.
Yeah, so this kind of side is mostly the demons. It's mostly Nurgle and a little bit of Khorne. I got about 30 Bloodletters and 30 Blue Horrors, but it's mostly Nurgle, and these are the famous Plague Bearers in like the Jim Vesal Plague Bear list that you may have heard of from that terrorized a lot of the 2019 season.
Tough to beat.
My favorite model in like this whole section are both my, this guy here, which is a Khorne Demon Prince, which again, it's built out of a Vermin Lord, and it uses about, as I said, about 13 different kits that went into there. Not like full kits, but bits.
Yeah.
And then my probably top 2 best painted models in this army are my Lord of Change here, which I spent probably close to 100 hours. I literally painted every little line on the feathers for the wings. So this model was beautiful when it came out. It's my favorite model. Sadly, I've only ever played with it once because this was actually like one of the first models I bought for this army, and then I quickly realized it wasn't good, and I just stopped playing it. So it's been sitting on my shelf. There's even a little bit of dust on it.
Oh, it's so gorgeous though.
And then this is kind of my Chaos Space Marine list, obviously led by the big A himself, Abaddon the Despoiler. I've got some scratch-built Obliterators, which I'm really happy with here. These were all scratch-built out of Centurions. Again, these were probably around $200 per unit, just when you factor in all the bits. And then same with my Khorne Berserkers up there.
Way up there, the red.
Those are all scratch-built as well, because out of actually Stormcast from Age of Sigmar.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, those look great.
So there's like a lot of little cool bits in there. And then I got 20 Possessed here, which again are built out of the new stuff.
That's the blue.
Yeah, the guys with the green blades there.
I love the fade on the
and then all the Chaos Space Marines up at the front, those are really exciting. My really favorite models though is, I gotta say, is the characters. So I just recently finished a Huron Blackheart conversion and a Lucius the Eternal conversion. These are both scratch built completely because the current models are old Finecast. I wanted to have all the cool Lords of Chaos, so I have basically every Lord of Chaos now from the Chaos Space Marine book, either the newer model or a scratch built kind of updated version, so that I can kind of say that I have all the boy band, Chaos boy band.
What's this right here?
That is actually a super old model, and cool story about that, I actually got that in a model, like a pen pal model exchange, where people would send models. You basically send someone a random model and you get a random model. And so is this little Zinch character. He's Peter. I think he's from actually like the late 80s. Games Workshop release.
It looks like a Watch from the Dark from the Dark Angels.
Yeah, so he's actually a very old Zinch sorcerer from like the old Peter range.
He's tiny.
And he's super tiny, so I just use him as, I'm not really sure about it. I don't really use him that much. So that's the Chaos Space Marine portion. And then moving on to the Death Guard, this is the newest part of the army. And believe it or not, besides these 3 Plague Burst crawlers, almost the entire army I painted since November of 2020.
Oh my goodness, at this level of painting, that's insane.
Yeah.
Do you sleep?
A little bit. So this has been my pandemic project the last 6 months, mostly painting Death Guard. And there's a few small bits that I painted previous that I used in old lists, but all of the Plague Marines, all of the Death Shroud, Defilers, vehicles, that kind of stuff. Mortarion I did paint quite some time ago, and he's been fully converted to have his scythe double-handed. I heat treated all the wings so that they're actually sweeping along. So rather than being kind of straight out, they're kind of got a bend to them. Same with all his robes. I actually heated it up and then bent them all. So he's got like a very kind of flow to him. So that's one of my favorite models as well.
It makes it really neat because like otherwise every single Mortarion looks pretty much the same.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very static pose. He's kind of just lumbering there, hanging out. So I wanted to do something much more dynamic, and obviously giving him the double-handed scythe, that was quite a project as far as conversion was concerned. And then finally over here is the Thousand Suns, which are, you know, the famous Thousand Suns. And my favorite model obviously here is Magnus. He is just such an amazing model, and obviously not having done anything wrong, leads the whole army. You know, it was actually funny, on my drive here, he got the front seat with the seatbelt and Mortarion had to sit in the back seat. So, you know, he called shotgun. You know, obviously having the power of foresight, he knew we were going on a car ride and was able to call shotgun ahead of Mortarion. So that's Magnus. And then, yeah, I just got a lot of really cool models in there. I did 1 unit of Scarab Occults in the 30K scheme, so the red here. Here. So that was something that I was just tired of painting blue armor at that point, because you can see how much blue armor I have. So I was like, how do I do these without painting more blue? So I thought I'd do them in a 30K scheme, and I got some really cool creature caster models as well. I got like a Demon Prince here. I believe
this one too, right?
This one's here, creature caster. This one's here, creature caster as well. So they've been great support as well with models and stuff over the years. So that's kind of most of it. I'm really not looking forward to painting any more Scarab Occult Terminators or Rubric Marines, because they are probably the most painful models to paint.
What makes them most painful?
It's just the trim, the amount of trim.
Yeah,
like people complain about Chaos trim, and I'm like, let me show you what the paint of Chaos trim with this army.
I'm noticing that, like, what kind of paints do you use? Like, I'm noticing like there's a very matte look to them. Like, there's very little shine here.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of matte varnish. So I generally use either Tester's Dull Coat or the new Vallejo matte varnish and everything. But majority of my paints, I'd say originally were probably mostly heavily in GW. But I've slowly started to shift into Pro Acryl's by Monument Hobbies, which are excellent line. I love their finish, really smooth paints. And then also for metallics, Scale 75 makes, as far as I'm concerned, the best metallics in the game outside of the Vallejo model colors. So those would be like my primary 2 drivers. And then obviously Games Workshop, where the nice thing about Citadel paints is they have such a great range of colors and a lot of like very like high saturation colors. So I like to use kind of, those are the 3 main ranges of paints that I use. And believe it or not, I'd say most of my Thousand Suns was done by hand. I only got my airbrush about halfway through this project. So a lot of people are like, oh, you must have airbrushed it all. A lot of this is actually done by hand with no airbrush.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, oh yeah, I airbrush. Maybe I can achieve something even like remotely close to that. But then this is almost all done by hand?
No, I'm just saying about half the army I use an airbrush. But if anyone is familiar with like the painting process, people assume that if you're airbrushing, you're doing a lot of airbrushing. But actually, I think 90% of my paint work is is by brush, and then the rest is by hand. So it's like this Lord of Change is entirely by hand. I didn't own an airbrush at the time. Same with Magnus, he is entirely by hand, no airbrush there.
Wow. Any rare models here that maybe call attention to? Anything like that people may not have seen before? There was obviously this guy we talked about, but what's this little dog thing here?
So this is part of my Huron Blackheart conversion. Huron Blackheart actually has a little familiar that it's called the Hamidra. I can't remember. So he has a little demon familiar that he kind of comes around with him. So obviously doing a scratch built Huron, I wanted to have his little demon friend, and so that they kind of go together. So that's a really cool model. This Lucius that I did, I'm really excited about. It's got parts of the original Lucius, but I also combined it with Lord Eidolon from the Emperor's Children 30K, and then also like the tongue is actually from a bloodletter, so he's got a super long tongue, and then I did like a very crazy, gross-looking flesh-like cloak. So that was
really
one of my favorite
did,
models.
This guy also has like a patchwork that looks like flesh.
Yeah, that's Fabius Bile, obviously. So they're the 2 Emperor's Children models in my army, because obviously both from that legion. Hopefully we get some new Noise Marines this year and I can add some more.
Do you have the one guitar guy?
I don't have that guy yet.
He seems cool.
I do have some bits to do up some just regular Chaos Space Marine Noise Marines. And then this Knight is probably one of my favorite models. It's like a complete cathedral to Chaos. It's fully magnetized, including all the weapon options. Even the top comes off, so I can kind of pop off the little top if I need to, but he's got like a cool little priest up there. You know, he's giving the incantations of Chaos. That model is actually also from the late 80s. It's an old Chaos sorcerer model, so I just love the idea that he's up there preaching from his book while the knight kind of marches.
All the guns are going by and explosions, and he's just trying to get people.
Yeah, and then those are some of my favorite models.
You've done an amazing, amazing job here. It's so much fun to look at. Oh yeah, I remember these snake guys here.
Yeah, so these are Chaos Bikers. I actually converted out of the Chaos Space Marine kit, the new one.
You didn't like the bikes?
The bikes are a little bit old, yeah. And also the, I think they're called Melusei from Age of Sigmar. They're the snake, daughters of Cain snake ladies.
Those are cool.
So I used the bottom half. These are Slanesh Bikers. And then all my Obliterators are in super scratch built, tons of green stuff from Centurion kits, the Hellbrute kit, like there's all sorts of stuff in there as well. So those are really fun to build.
Oh man, well, looking at this, it can be intimidating. Someone new.
Yeah.
How would you advise them? Where do they start with Chaos, and why should they play Chaos?
Well, you should play Chaos because they're the coolest faction. You can have the most, I think, creativity when it comes to building models, painting models. Like it would be weird if you painted, say, a pink Tau army, maybe not, but Nick might disagree, but there's a lot of armies where you can't really go too crazy, like maybe Imperial Guard or some of the like Sisters of Battle, but what I love about Chaos is if you want to really do some very like bright, vibrant schemes, you can do that. Or alternatively, you can do something like Death Guard, where if you want to do really grimy and kind of old. My Death Guard is actually quite clean, but I've done a very interesting kind of striation pattern on all the army, on all the armor.
Almost like bone.
Yeah, so the idea is that it's like kind of an old, and this is a bit of an older scheme as well. But I guess for collecting, you know, the biggest advice I would get is just start small. I mean, this obviously didn't do this overnight. Pick models that you enjoy painting. If you don't like the models, you're not going to want to paint the army. And then don't worry too much about whether something's good or not. As you can see, over time, as things kind of got in and out of vogue, I added new things and certain models I haven't used for many years because you know, they're just not good in the game anymore. But you know, if you love the models in the army, it never feels like it's something that you wasted your time on, because even models that I've never used, like my Lord of Change I've used once, some of the models I've painted and I've literally never used. It's just it's the joy of the love of painting the models. And so as long as you do that, you'll never feel like your time is wasted.
100%.
And
Agreed.
so, yeah, so.
Play what you love.
Play what you love.
Yeah. Now,
but play Chaos. You should love Chaos.
Now that said, what are you playing these days? Like what kind of Chaos list would you bring these days? What's the state of Chaos right now?
Yeah, so right now I'm playing primarily Death Guard, and mostly because they're the only book with a brand new 9th edition book. I've got my fingers crossed, especially with that gorgeous new Be'lakor model, that we're gonna get some demon love soon.
Yeah,
I love me some demon love. So I'm hoping to maybe add a little bit more Slanesh in my list. I think a Keeper Secrets and Be'lakor are gonna be my next 2 editions. I'm actually, believe it or not, I actually have no more unpainted Chaos models. So I've finished every model that I own for Chaos.
You have no pile of shame.
I have a pile of shame, not Chaos pile of shame. I reached Chaos Hobby Equilibrium, and it feels really good. So anything I buy now, which is obviously be the Be'lakor model, will be the next thing that I haven't painted. Most of the other projects I'm working on are either Space Marine stuff for my Soul Drinkers, which some of you guys may have seen on the channel, or I'm working on Cursed City as well. But yeah, at the end of the day, Death Guard right now is good. They're not like sweeping the meta, but they're very solid. And then I'm allying in a little bit of Chaos Space Marines into them, and so that's what I'm going to be playing later in the battle report against Gary.
So cool. Well, thank you so much for coming. It is a joy to see this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions for Jim, put them in the comments. If you feel free to answer as many as you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep an eye on the page and answer as many questions as I can.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us. Now we're going to do the sign off. Now nobody's done this. Nobody's been able to do this yet.
Okay.
So what we do, it's not hard. I don't know why, but all we say is, until we see you next time, play on. And we say play on at the same time.
Okay.
All right? You ready for this?
Yeah.
Till we see you next time,
play on.
That works.